Now I have a couple of notes before we start painting. The first thing I want to say is that we are not going to be mixing any paint on the plate. The only paint mixing you will do will happen on your paper. The second thing is that I will not be giving you any water to be washing your brush. So when you want to change your water or your paint, what you're going to do is take your paper towel and your brush. You're going to lay your brush on your towel, pinch it, and pull the paint off. That will be enough to clean it, but only if you are painting lightly, not pushing hard with your brush. So you can choose to paint with any pattern inside your scarf, but you're not going to draw it out first. You're just going to go ahead and paint. So maybe I'm going to start with my top section and pick my pattern. So maybe I use polka dots. I am only using the tippy top of my brush. At no point should my brushes be folded and flat against the paper. They should just be touching a little bit. And pick whatever pattern. Okay, so now I'm ready to clean my brush, so I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'm going to put the brush on the paper towel, pinch the brush, pull the paint. It now looks like the paintbrush kind of has a mohawk, and that's actually going to help you with really fine details later. So if you want to do something really tiny, make sure that you keep your bristles pinched like that. I'm going to move on to my next one for now and let some of this paint dry. Maybe I want to do a vertical stripe. So see how skinny that mohawk line can get you? If you want to use a wider brush stroke, that's fine. Again, pinch, pull. You would just use the wider side of that mohawk. So maybe now I want to do a wider one. So that's, I'm still using just the top of my brush. I've just changed the direction my brush is going. Notice I'm not scooping the paint. I am just touching the paint to the brush, and most of the bristles are actually clean. So you should not have paint on the handle of your brush. As you're trying to decide which patterns you want to use, try to think of very simple things. There should not be any brush strokes that are going swirly, swirly, swirl all around like you're scribbling. I want you to use very careful, very clean, very readable patterns. Okay, so if you're going to be doing a zigzag, I want you to make sure you are doing V shapes very slowly and not rushing through them. I'm going to show you a rushed zigzag on the paper towel. So if you were doing it rushed, it would look like this and scribbly. And that's not going to look very nice for your final picture. So if you need it wider, you can just do another matching zigzag. Now a little bit of that red I was using before is sneaking through. So I can pull a little bit more of that paint out before I keep going. And I will just finish my zigzag up. I am going to want to paint this background area, but I want this other space to dry first before I do that. So I'm going to finish adding different patterns on here, picking whatever colors I want. Maybe I'll do some diagonal stripes. Thinking basic lines, basic shapes, nothing too complicated. I think I'm actually going to turn that into an X. So I'm going to take a color that looks nice with it, which would be blue, and maybe go the other direction and match those corners to the other corners. This is actually called an argyle pattern when you use these X's. And I can even add extra little details in there. So it's very simple details combined can make it look complicated, but it's actually just little marks, and I'm not going crazy with designs. And then remember that I said you can mix colors on your paper. So I might want a gray for my knitting needles, or I might want to get a different color out here. So maybe I want to have a pink. So I'm going to start with my white because it's lighter and it helps the other paint flow better. So I'm going to get my white covering all the space I want my white covering. Okay, pinch and pull. Oh, watch out, I smeared. I'm going to get a little bit of my other color and go ahead and blend them together right on my paper. If it's still not the color you want, if it's maybe it's still a little bit too dark, I can go back while the paint is still wet with more white to lighten that up. So if I want to make my gray, I want to show you how much black to use because black can be a little overwhelming. So I'm going to start with my white, fill in that knitting needle, and some of my pink is showing through, and that's totally fine. I'm going to wipe out my brush. I am going to barely touch the black paint. That's actually even too much, so I'm going to wipe some of it off. There should barely be any on there. And you can go ahead and fill in your knitting needles. A little bit of black paint goes a very long way because black is such a dark color. So now that you know the tricks, you can finish painting your patterns. So once you have all of your patterns painted, you can put it on the drying rack and wash your brush. I do want to see that you have your hand under the running water and swirling the brush on your hand with the running water while you are washing your brush out to make sure all the paint comes out for the next class. So have fun painting your patterns.